Okay, welcome back to our final episode of VibeCode in Season 2. So I want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So we thought we'd try something a little special. Throughout the season, we've explored AI-augmented coding development from many different angles and many different real-world use cases, from governance to collaboration to execution. For this final episode, I'm joined by Jason Ritchie, who is one of our managing partners at our organization and a fellow tech nerd. Is a broad view of how these shifts are impacting teams, strategy, and the enterprise at large. So today we're going to focus on perspective and reflection and what all of this means moving forward. So welcome, Jason. I'm going to take a second to introduce yourself.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Jason Ritchie, as Jamie said, managing partner here at Valorum Reply. I've spent the last 15 or so years in the consulting space, focused on cloud adoption and application development. And before that, I was in some humble IT beginnings. So, as Jamie said, I am a tech nerd at heart.
And what a week it'd be for tech, right?
It's kind of an avalanche of business
stuff like that. So, I know it's going to date us a little bit, but Opus 4.6, Codex 5.3, Bolt Book, Claw Book, Claw Molt. Oh, and Claw.
Yeah. Whatever we're calling it these days.
So, I'm going to try and take everyone through a little episode by episode just to get your perspective on how that feels for you and from your purview. So, early in the season, we started off with just the basis of AI-augmented coding and how it's being used in development workflows today.
Yep.
From your vantage point, where do you see AI delivering the most immediate and meaningful impact?
In coding?
Mm-hmm. Or in general, actually, in the business, as what can AI-augmented coding offer, and what's the impact have across the business at whole?
Yeah. So I think the biggest shift, we've obviously in our business, we've been spending the last year really trying to understand where it fits and how it fits, while also continuing to give our customers what they're asking for without introducing new risks, things like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that as you mentioned, new models are coming out every week, seemingly, new technologies, new ways of working, and so factoring all of that in has been quite the challenge. But I think what we have seen and what has kind of risen to the top, if you will, is that for engineers, architects, engineers, that fundamentals of development, understand architectural concepts, understand how to debug and those types of things. The agentic AI-assisted coding really elevates what they're able to accomplish. And it's, some have said that the coding language becomes English. It really elevates what they're able to accomplish, especially as you start to talk about multiple parallel agents or agent teams. You take someone who understands what they're trying to accomplish and then give them essentially a team of folks that can work together with them to accomplish those things. And I think that's where we see the most value, is with the folks that already have a really clear understanding of the architecture and the system implications. Those folks are able to work much, much faster as they start to predict the next things down the line.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the breadth is the key rather than depth, I think. And so I think those who can adapt to not bring their bias to depth, but use that as an opportunity for growth across the breadth technology landscape. As you said, the language, and as a Brit, I appreciate that English is the language that we go for. But like being able to reason over an architecture level vision, I think is really impactful. Like, I'm really surprised every day I give AI a different challenge. Like just this morning, I was like, hey, go build me a Copilot Studio agent. I'm giving you the Power Platform CLI. Go build me something that does this. Come back, get my coffee, and there is Copilot Studio agent. Like, that's super powerful. And just, I don't think, I love one of the phrases used early on in our conversation was like, find the edges. And I really don't think we have found the edges yet. It just keeps improving.
Well, the goalposts move every week, right?
Right.
And that's the exciting thing, and somewhat frustrating too. If you are trying to find the edges, is the edges keep pushing outward.
Yeah.
And
true.
and that's really what it's about, is continuing to figure out how can we use this. And I do think that is one of the keys that I see day to day, is those that really are able to start to harness this in a really meaningful way are the ones that are figuring out how to work with AI the way that it likes to be worked with. I talked before about Opus and or the Anthropic models versus OpenAI models and others, and their the way that they handle assumptions, or the way that they think about reasoning and so the more that you can interact and explore and understand their strengths and weaknesses, and when to use at what stage of the life cycle, then the better the outcomes.
Yeah, that's true. I think that actually leads quite nicely to the next question, which is, we talked a little bit in the early episodes about AI as a teammate. But there was a lot of fear around AI replacing certain roles, and it seems like AI is shifting role types. I have been an advocate of retaining roles and evolving roles rather than replacing roles. And I know you're the same. And I think adding AI into your repertoire or your kit bag of tools to use, whether it be rapid prototyping, whether it be for code reviews, whether it be for documentation, it's there. So how have you seen this shift towards, first, your massive organizations just replacing everyone with AI? And I think they're going to come a bit of a problem later. But then how do you use this in an organization like Valor and McBuy of bringing AI teammates into, I use the word teammates in air quotes because they're true teammates, but like they are around in the ability to utilize. How have you seen that across the board?
Yeah, I do. It's a good point, because I do think, the companies that are seeing this as an opportunity to one-to-one replace headcount, I think, is a bit misguided. Certainly in our space, what we found is, to your earlier point about breadth versus depth, I think what it affords us the ability to do is raise up the folks that we have and get them to consider other problems, or spend their energy in other ways. One place that, so on the coding side, we talked about, right, if you're a developer and you don't have to spend as many hours on keystrokes, on typing repetitive syntax that you already know, you can spend more time thinking about security risks, or thinking about downstream impacts or second or third order consequences of things an assistant is in, right? And so you elevate those folks and spend training. And so if they're more junior, let's train them on assistant thinking. If they're more senior, they get to produce better outcomes because they're spending more of their time thinking about those things. In different areas of the business, thinking about product ownership, design, and things like that, it's not about replacing design or requirements. It's about rethinking the processes that we use, right? It's about thinking about how do we get to a place where we can get those outcomes faster, not because we replaced humans, but because the people that have the SME expertise and the consulting pedigree talk to customers and understand what they're trying to elicit out of a solution, now have these tools to get rapid feedback and then have a mechanism to get that into a development team faster.
Yeah, I think, going back to the old ways of measuring number of commits or lines of code, I think it just gone. I think productivity metrics have changed. The bar of throwaway code is different. The testing evaluation process is different. And I like the way you think about it as, like, again, such as original vision, as AI should be augmenting capabilities. If every person can do, n to the power, whatever number of things, more things, they can scale more efficiently across the organization, which I think is really useful. And earlier on, I mentioned that depth isn't going to be the thing that we continue, but actually what I mean by that is, I talk to like Jesper in looking at the software development lifecycle, and his knowledge of taking, effectively what the requirements are and building that and looking at things with different lenses. That expertise and SME skill set is highly valuable, and being able to replicate that as an agent like that person would own like the security agent or the SDLC agent or the code review agent, whatever, and then scale that across the business so that I could have a security wizard AI agent at my fingertips to help me be better at security in my like rapid prototyping or whatever. I could be super valuable.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with that is, she mentioned that AI augmentation. I think people are vacillating between two extremes. Either the extreme of AI replacing everyone and everything, and there is no human in the loop, or you don't need a human in the loop, or the example that you just used, where you take this SME knowledge, but instead of having that be a scale agent, you say, well, we don't need the security expert anymore. AI is our security expert, which is very misguided.
Yeah.
But then the other extreme is saying like, okay, well, if we just give everyone access to AI, they'll have some incremental efficiency gain, because they have an accelerated search thing, right? And that's not the right principle either. We really need to figure out and take a step back and look at our processes at the end and say, where can we gain efficiency with? And in your example, perhaps security or these or things like that are a bottleneck in the business. It's not that you don't need someone that has that SME knowledge. It's that you need the ability to scale it more effectively.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And so those are the places where you can holistically look at your processes and look at the places where you can deploy those agents with someone still stewarding what they know and where they get their information. I think you can use it to its fullest advantage without set of trip-ups.
I like that approach. I think like rather than be like, AI, create me a security agent, it should be the security SME who's got years of knowledge, understands the ecosystem, creating the security agent, as you say, and then being the expert. I mean, it's like a full-time job staying up to date with AI knowledge just in itself, and then how AI is impacting each individual like vertical or industry or whatever it's kind of wild. And so that kind of leads me to our, I wouldn't say sort of semesters, but second portion of our episode catalog. And we touched on this earlier. AI is evolving so fast.
Yeah.
Like I don't think either of our feet touched the floor for the last couple of weeks. And as a leader, how do you think about staying not just in lockstep with innovation, but ahead of the game, seeing the icebergs and the tailwinds that you can help navigate your organization and then help your organization do that for clients you work with?
Man, that's the hard one, right?
Yeah.
That's the tough one. I think the first is the signal to noise ratio. I mean, there's so much noise. And so for me, it's really about trying to spend my energy focusing on the things that I think will have second and third order consequences, right? If you're on the internet in the last week, you saw Cling 3.0 video and C-Dance and all of these new video models, and that stuff's really cool. But I spend very little energy on it because it's not a place where my customers are coming to me and spending out. I think about the second and third order consequences of the movie industry and things like that. But I really try and hone the signal to noise on the things that I think are impactful. So I look at things that are on the cusp with work and new models and what their cost optimizations are, and then I try and project those things out. Right? And if this rate of change continues, would that impact the processes and the things that we're implementing now? The thing that I have found the most difficult, especially the last 6 months, has been trying to put a stake in the ground. Tell you what,
just like the ground is moving all the time.
It is.
And as soon as you do it, then it's 3 months behind.
Correct.
The innovation rate, I've not seen anything like this. Although the LLMs themselves have, I would say, are changing from orders of magnitude measurements to now incremental changes. So I think there is some slowing until AI starts. I mean, allegedly Codex 5.3 had a massive input into developing itself, which I think is indicative of where things are going. But and there's a lot of thought in the industry about until AI can create AI researcher level LLM knowledge, we won't see the intelligence explosion. But I could come back to something that we discussed earlier in the episode, which is even though the LLMs are plateauing a little bit, only 1 to 2% of organizations are really consider themselves frontier firms. So there's still so much headroom, and in that plateau, to benefit from agentic systems and thinking of, more holistically around AI. But yeah, I had this conversation with Mithuna about what do we do in terms of picking tooling for engineering. I think we just have to be agile for the next year.
Yeah, so I was just about to say, agility is going to be the key. And I think too, you and I have talked a lot about how we build systems for customers and trying to give them, the kitchen and the appliances and the things that they need to continue to evolve. And I think that's going to be the key, is focusing on the structures that are unlikely to evolve that rapidly, while baking in the agility to adapt, right? So if we're building agentic structures for customers, making sure that we have the ability to adapt to improved models and have flexibility in how we do that. But architecturally speaking, having something that's fundamentally viable for a few years, right?
Yeah.
Or the same thing in the tooling. If we're making tooling decisions, and tooling that's you should make those on things that allow us to be nimble in terms of the model choices and the processes and the things like that. And that's one of the things that I think I've learned recently in the last couple of months, really, is if you're banking on the process around a limitation to current tooling or limitation to current LLMs, that investment is likely wasted, right? Because by the time you get something deployed in a couple of months, Anthropic or somebody will have solved it for you, or some other company will have an add-on for it. And so it's really more about the process itself. And so I spend a lot of time focusing on what is ideal, whether or not the systems need to support it, and then marching to ideal, and then filling the gaps on my way there.
Yeah, and I think this, that's a really good approach. We've talked about this at length, and I think, like you said, LLM agnostic is key. I'm still surprised by organizations that buy their LLMs. They spend so long building their security perimeter and their boundaries and their policies and their MBMs and all the rest of it. They get it nice enough, and then they punch a gaping hole through the side connecting to XAI or OpenAI directly, rather than using stack providers that have the sort of top to bottom approach. But so to that, what questions should other leaders be asking of themselves and their organization to help them think about the next phase, whether it's joining the AI train or whether it's they've joined and now they're figuring out what's the next thing? So what questions should they be thinking about?
Yeah, that's good. I think for me, the biggest thing is, question the problem, not just the solution. I think we're at a place where standard operating procedure can be challenged. And so I think that if you are a business owner or someone in the business that controls or manages any type of business process, set aside AI for a minute. Set aside, efficiency and ROI and all of those things, and just look fundamentally at what you're trying to accomplish in the business. What do your processes and different look like? What are you trying to accomplish with them? And then take that problems back and see what the solutions are. Because anytime you add AI to an existing process, you are not tapping.
Yeah, I've seen that so much. People are like, oh, we just AI-ified our existing process. Well, it's not really optimizing it.
I went to a product site the other day, and I just laughed because I pulled it up and it just said "now with AI" in the corner, and I was like, that's probably not helpful. You really have to think about, how would I do this now?
Yeah,
with this tooling and with this access. And again, that's why I say, like, skate to optimal state. And maybe it's not all there. Maybe optimal doesn't exist yet. But my guess is we'll get there.
Yeah.
And let's build towards it, structure towards it.
Yeah, I like something you used to say when we go into the customers was give them what they can't build yet, and then figure out how we get them to that. Because the optimal solution often isn't yet something that exists, but let's say like skating back and getting and figuring out, and things may change on your route there. So staying with the agile approach. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like a number of processes that I've been involved in our workflows, you can clearly see like my washing machine has AI, and then there's just, and it's done itself a bit of a disservice because everything has AI, everybody has AI. So where is its value now?
Right.
The ability to zoom out a little bit and go back to the problem statement. And what I really love when I'm either vibe coding or asking AI about some stuff, like researcher, the frontier stuff from Microsoft, is try not to give it too much context. So I'm steering the answer. And it has often come back with some really interesting different approaches that I have not considered. Whereas I know a lot of people try and give AI a lot of context. And so you're kind of pigeonholing the answer a little bit. And I feel like what we're starting to see now is the LMs are smart enough to be able to look at things from multiple perspectives, which is kind of nice. And if you just give it the problem statement, like I've said, I think that produces a better outcome than jamming too much of stuff that you assume. And then, so part of that, though, I would say, is in a business, we can't just do whatever we want. I mean, arguably the tech is now catching up to do whatever we want, but there is a lot more requirements around governance, security management, and every 2 weeks, nearly on the money, is a new security risk or a new flaw. Like we talked about OpenClaw, hugely powerful, immense amount of risk.
Yes.
And so there was some quote, and I can't remember who it's by. If I find it, I'll put it in the description. But like the lower barrier to entry you make something that is powerful, the more risk it's inherently going to bring. But people who don't know what the power brings are going to use it, and they don't understand secure APIs or reverse proxies or all the things you need to do to put certificates in place and manage things like tools like. And they're downloading skills full of malware stuff. So at an exec level as an organization, what are the top things that people should be thinking about when they're not just building, but AI enabling their organization, building the culture of learning and thinking about how you enable your employees to go build AI stuff without breaking themselves into genera?
Yeah, I think the biggest, not to be, Microsoft evangelist so blatantly, but I think the biggest thing is kind of what you're surrounded with, right? It's the gates, the moat, the outside. And so I think if you can start from a place where, you're using Foundry Fabric, and as you mentioned earlier, you have access to these LLMs kind of through that moated system, those are going to give you access to the IQ tools, Work IQ, Fabric IQ, and you then inherently have identity management in your Microsoft tools. You have the ability to inherently Foundry to gate access to certain types of data. You have the model access inside of Foundry and Fabric. This is restricting or preventing learning from your data. You have the ability to limit or cascade or containerize your agents as they're deployed, manage agent sprawl. So I really think that the first thing I would say is, consider your moat, like set your broader surround strategy, because the thing you don't want to do, if you want to encourage innovation and you want to encourage the ideation throughout the organization, is you want to kind of surround it on the outside and then allow that.
Yeah, I think it feels like when iPads came to the business, when the execs were like, "Hey, my iPad work." Like, oh no, do I have to? It's terrible. It's insecure. This is back in the day, like iPad 1 and stuff. We're in that realm now where the value if you don't enable AI, you're going to get left behind because other organizations are just lapping this stuff up. But if you give unfettered access, like I dread to think that API keys and secrets and, just the stuff that's on there. I mean, anyone who's watching, if you go and ask your LLM what it knows about you, it's kind of a terrifying experience, honestly. So like the trade-off between rapid innovation and security is going to be that, and I think there's an identity renaissance, which I talked about, for like these agents go and operate as you or as your like pseudo you, but it has your access, doesn't have your access. So Jason just Wang said IT is going to be the HR for AI, which I mean I could see what he was alluding to, but interesting concept. So another thing we talked as we go through the episode list in, I think it was episode 7 or 8, was about research and using AI before we even get to the project, like hands-on keyboard per se, is a lot of stuff that what we do in the consulting realm is make sure we understand the customer's problems, their pain points, what the industry looks like, market fit, that sort of stuff. We had some great conversations with Jamie Mann and crew about like using it to research. Where do you see it? What are some tips and tricks that you can provide to organizational leaders where AI surprised you in terms of using it before we get going?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think research is a fantastic way to use the LLMs and the models. I mean, I've used it for all types of research, personally and professionally. I think some of the key things to one of your earlier points about not leading the witness, right, is to let the research develop and then let LLM guide you to additional points of data, additional points of research. The other thing, so you may decide that you want some competitive analysis on a certain customer or something of that nature, and maybe you prompt in a way that says, "Hey, I want to understand this particular customer. I want to understand their products. I want to understand whatever." And you'll get some really good analysis. And then I think what's really helpful then is to use the LLM to ask, what you didn't ask me. What am I missing? What am I missing here? What competitive analysis should I be doing? And then what can I put? The other thing that I really like to do, especially when I'm doing research planning, is to make them competing decisions.
Yeah.
Because once you get some really good, let's say you get really good insights, really good data, you feel like, hey, I've got a research report, I've got a really good plan from Rocket, and then go put that in Gemini, and then say, this is my plan. My plan's awesome. Go put this. And it'll give you a list of holes that's longer than your original plan, right?
Yeah.
And then go throw that in OpenAI. So a lot of times, kind of pitting them against each other is a really interesting way to get a lot more thoroughness. But also, you can do this in the code side of things too, in terms of forcing it to ensure that, from a testing perspective, that it's validated 4 or 5 times, different ways, or something different lenses. You could do the same thing on the research runs too. You can say once the research is aggregated, using 5% to evaluate for completeness as well.
Yeah, interesting. And I think so. I love that using AI for research to then extract that. I mean, when I build a VibeCode product or a solution, I will inherently build some research phase into that, decide on the infrastructure separately, decide on that spec doc, and then review it, make some changes, and then think about deployment. So it's kind of easy to get going really quickly, but also because the bar of throwaway has changed, you could just be like, then I start all over again. So we talked about how a lot more people are able to access AI. What does that mean for employees and the culture within the business, and how how certainly we've talked about AI Fridays on the other episodes before, so everyone should be aware at this point of what AI Fridays are. I love it. I like this sharing notion. I like the idea of people finding excitement in these new things that discover. But as a leader of an organization, what do you think is happening in terms of the culture and the shift around leveraging AI, its trust, its engagement, its utilization?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, first and foremost, is bypassing fear, right? So as an organization, you have to understand how you intend to use it. As you mentioned earlier, my philosophy has never been about human augmentation. That is a dangerous way to go. I think we do more by uplifting the people we have and scaling that and we do by trying to assume that agent is a one sort of person. And so I think that ensuring that the organization understands the intent and the motivations around the AI strategy is important. Because if folks are in fear of that technology, we're going to be resistant to it, obviously. So that's step one, and then I think evangelism, AI Fridays, innovation topics, and spurring that the knowledge sharing has been a massive boom. Not everybody is like you and I wanted them on Twitter looking at stuff. So I think that getting different sources of information to different types of people to burn in different ways has driven that. So, right, it's driven that. And then to the point earlier about building the moat and kind of letting it happen, I think a lot of the really good ideas, come from these folks, right? Your CTO is not going to have all the best AI ideas. You've got to get it to the people that are doing the work. If you're trying to think about transforming processes, you've got to get folks doing the work, interacting and driving that ideation. And so,
that's interesting. I like the idea of scaling the knowledge. If everyone take an area and learn something and then share it, and then you can then build up your knowledge base more broadly to find something that's useful. I like that. And something as simple as AI Fridays was super effective. People get excited about it. AI is a buzzword. The sellers are learning more about what it does and how to talk about it. The engineers are thinking about new ways and hearing different things in customer scenarios that are prompting new solutions they can build, all that kind of stuff. So I really like it. And so as we think about just closing up this conversation, I think I have a couple of guiding principles, and then I'd love to hear what yours. I think one guiding principle I like to think about is when someone's building a solution, and everything it should be just one human, it should be a pod of two or more, because my perspective is all of your agents will bias towards your perspective, and so it's not always obvious what inherent bias you're putting in, but you're steering the agent and you're building something, whether it's security side, whether it's a UI element or a choice. I always try and pick somebody else to work with and view so they can review something that I haven't thought of. The AI agents are really good at picking up problematic things, but I think, different approaches need those SME skills, which is why I think the human in the loop is still really important. Having AI in the team is one of reinforces that. The other thing I think from an organization perspective is the learning, there should be a agent or co-pilot advocate in every business, no matter how big you are, how small you are. I think having somebody who is not just excited by AI, but understands the business needs, to your point before about the business problem, figuring out how they can build something real quick and show real time to value on that bit is super important. And then iterating on that for different people's use cases, different scenarios, etc. So if you're a smaller company, picking one or two people that are, really excited about it, they lead the training, they do the some of the early deployment stuff, I think could be really interesting. But what about you? What would given the executive audience, what would your summarized takeaway be for the leaders to think about?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think the biggest thing for me was just to challenge your to challenge your notion of what your business problems are. I think at the leadership level, I think we have to step back and take a look at what we do day to day and how we spend our energy. Time scarcity is a real thing, and when we look at the people that we have in the organization and the way that we do our work, are we leaving something on the table? And I think the one really big takeaway that I've seen from talking to customers about how they are thinking about AI is that not enough people are thinking about actually rethinking their processes entirely with AI. They're thinking about inject AI into existing process. And so I really challenge leaders to think about start somewhere, but taking their a problematic process or a costly process or a time-intensive process, and then pulling all the way back, your inputs and outputs, and then really thinking about how you could transform that with no bias to what you're doing today. I think removing that lens of today's process, it's a huge win if you want to put advantage of that.
Yeah, I agree. And an example of that we went through was we first started looking at the SDLC. As I was brought in to look at this, there's a very long, lengthy process of taking customer requirements, making sure that we have all the assumptions nailed down, making sure we have the technology parameters nailed down. And so the first step was like, let's put an agent on all these things. And it was like 52 agents or something. Like, actually, what's the goal? The goal is to get to something that is useful to then go build a thing or a POC or whatever. And so it allowed us to sort of stop with the minutia, adding bits and pieces here and there. As you said, step right back and look at like, what's the objective? Like, to ground ourselves in the metrics. And this was another really important part of the early episode was, what are we measuring impact on? Like, how does the success, let's drive towards that thing, and then let's get rid of all the rest of it, assumptions, and start again. And now we have AI, and that proved a lot more valuable.
Well, that's kind of what you see. We did this with our internal project around the resource management system as well, which was, you start to look at that and you go, hey, okay, if you think about it from the old process perspective there, well, with AI, we could, automate the ingestion of this one thing. And, you start to go into that and you go, okay, well, we could automate the ingestion of that one thing. And then if you start to look back at it, you go, well, but why would we pass that one thing there? Because we could automate that.
Yeah.
Or
passing of it.
Wait, why wouldn't this thing 7 steps down just go over there and grab, And so if you're not willing to just step back and go like, okay, what am I actually trying to accomplish? And now here's my availability of tech stack competencies. And like, what's the best path to get there? You're just injecting it. Like you said, you can put an agent in every process along the way. Would you get some incremental improvement? Probably. But you'd also have 57 agents and maybe get 5% improvement versus what we're actually seeing, which is, 4 or 5 agents and 80%.
Yeah. Well, awesome chat. I could talk hours with you on this sort of topic. But it's really nice to hear the executive level conversation, what you've observed. I think, this has really shown how AI-augmented coding and the models and the LLMs and all these frontier labs are pushing out stuff that doesn't just change technology, it's impacting organizations and culture and how people approach this problem. It needs to be done a lot more thoughtfully. Toad mentioned in another episode about the problems if you had before AI are just going to show up more when you add AI. And so working through those problems, as a whole is really important too. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So that concludes season 2 of VibeCode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Very excited to see what's next and give you the update on season 3 when we hear about it. Thanks so much.